Charlie Kirk is dead, shot down at 31, and what happened next will shock you. The conservative firebrand who built America's largest youth political movement was assassinated yesterday, and the international fallout is exploding right now. British activist Tommy Robinson just declared war on UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, and the accusations he's making will change how you see this entire tragedy. If you want the complete breakdown of this developing crisis that's tearing through two nations, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now because this story is moving faster than anything we've covered this year. Here's what the mainstream media isn't telling you about the moments after Kirk's assassination. While Americans were processing the shock of losing their most influential young conservative voice, something incredible happened across the Atlantic. Keir Starmer, the UK Prime Minister, released what seemed like a standard political condolence statement. He condemned the violence, called for unity, and expressed sympathy for Kirk's family. Standard politician playbook stuff, right? Wrong, because Tommy Robinson was watching, and what Robinson said next has turned this American tragedy into a full-blown international political war. Robinson didn't just disagree with Starmer's statement. He absolutely destroyed him, and I mean destroyed. Here's the exact quote that's setting social media on fire right now. "How dare you comment on his death when your own politics fuels this hatred? If Charlie Kirk lived in the UK, you would lock him up. You put targets on people through political smears and then act shocked when someone pulls the trigger." But Robinson wasn't finished. He kept going. Charlie Kirk told the truth. In Britain, truth-tellers get arrested while criminals walk free. Your government would have criminalised Kirk the moment he stepped foot in this country, and you know it. These aren't just angry social media posts. This is a direct accusation from one of Britain's most controversial activists that the UK Prime Minister's policies create the conditions for political violence. Now, before you dismiss this as just political theatre, you need to understand what Robinson is really saying here. He's making the argument that Western governments, including Starmer's Labour government, have created a two-tier justice system that silences conservative voices while protecting their political allies. And here's the terrifying part. Robinson might be right about how Kirk would have been treated in the UK. Think about it. Kirk's organisation, Turning Point USA, regularly criticised mass immigration, challenged gender ideology on campuses, and questioned COVID restrictions. In Starmer's Britain, any one of those positions could land you in jail for hate speech. Just last month, British citizens were arrested for social media posts that criticised the government's immigration policies. Robinson himself has been in and out of prison for journalism that the establishment didn't like. So when Robinson says Kirk would have been locked up in the UK, he's not making a wild claim, he's stating a pattern. But here's where this story gets even more heartbreaking. I managed to speak with Dr. James Orey from Cambridge University, who knew Kirk personally, and what he told me will give you chills about what we really lost. If political opponents had to take out a single person, had to target one person, it would have been Charlie Kirk, Dr. Orey said. He will be a devastating loss to his family, to the American right to America. Dr. Orey wasn't just speaking as an academic observer. He knew Kirk personally. They had become friends over the past few months, and the details he shared paint a picture of a man who was far more than just a political figure. "Charlie texted me just 3 days ago," Dr. Orey told me, asking some obscure question about moral philosophy so he could be better prepared for campus engagements. He was always trying to improve his ability to have peaceful discourse with students who disagreed with him. Think about that for a moment. 3 days before his assassination, Charlie Kirk was studying moral philosophy to have better conversations with his political opponents. This wasn't a man spreading hate. This was someone dedicated to peaceful intellectual engagement. Dr. Orey continued, "I was with Charlie and his wife Erica for dinner just a couple of weeks ago in Colorado. He was explaining the security involved in his campus visits, state police, private security. He knew the risks, but he kept going because he believed in what he was doing." The man was 31 years old. He left school at 18 and built what Cambridge academics are now calling the most successful youth political movement the West has seen in decades. He had a wife, 2 young children, and employed over 1,000 people through his organisation. And this is where the story gets even bigger than one assassination. Because what Charlie Kirk built with Turning Point USA wasn't just another political organisation. It was a complete transformation of how young conservatives engage with politics. When Kirk started TPUSA at 18, college campuses were completely dominated by progressive activism. Conservative students felt isolated, silenced, and abandoned by traditional Republican organisations that didn't understand their generation. Kirk changed all that. He didn't just create another boring political club. He built a cultural movement that made conservatism cool again for young people. His social media campaigns reached millions of students who would never have attended a traditional Republican event or read a policy paper. But here's what made Kirk truly dangerous to the establishment. He didn't just preach to the choir. His campus events were specifically designed to engage with hostile audiences. He would go to the most liberal universities in America and have open debates with students who fundamentally disagreed with him. And he was winning those debates. Students who had never heard conservative arguments presented clearly and confidently were starting to question the progressive orthodoxy they'd been fed their entire academic lives. That's why Robinson's accusation against Starmer hits so hard, because Kirk's approach, respectful but unapologetic conservative activism, is exactly what gets you arrested in modern Britain. Robinson's attack on Starmer has exposed something much bigger than just British politics. It's revealed the growing divide between American and European approaches to free speech and political dissent. In America, despite all our problems, Kirk could still build a massive organisation, hold campus events, and engage in public debates. Yes, he faced protests and security threats, but the system still allowed him to operate. In Britain, that same level of conservative activism would land you in prison. The UK has hate speech laws so broad that citizens are regularly arrested for social media posts. They have non-crime hate incidents that get recorded by police even when no law has been broken. They have a two-tier justice system where politically connected groups get protection while dissidents get persecuted. Robinson knows this system intimately because he's been its primary victim for over a decade. He's been imprisoned multiple times for journalism that exposed uncomfortable truths about immigration and Islamic extremism. So when he sees Starmer offering condolences for Kirk's death, he sees pure hypocrisy. "Your government creates the climate of hostility," Robinson said, and then acts surprised when that hostility turns violent. This accusation goes to the heart of a debate that's raging across the Western world right now. Does political rhetoric create violence, or does the suppression of legitimate political discourse create the conditions for violence? Robinson's argument is that when governments criminalise normal political speech, they don't eliminate extreme views. They drive them underground where they become more radical and more dangerous. Think about it this way. If Charlie Kirk had been silenced in America the way Robinson has been silenced in Britain, would Kirk's millions of followers have just given up their political beliefs, or would some of them have been pushed toward more extreme alternatives? This is the paradox of modern anti-extremism policies. By defining mainstream conservative positions as hate speech, governments may actually be creating the extremism they claim to be fighting. Kirk represented the peaceful democratic path for young conservative activism. He channeled political frustration into legal constitutional activities. When you eliminate those peaceful outlets, you don't eliminate the frustration, you just remove the safety valve. And here's the most chilling part of Dr. Oray's testimony. Kirk was your archetypal American man. He was humble, successful, and completely dedicated to peaceful political engagement. If someone like Charlie Kirk can be targeted for assassination, then no conservative leader is safe. But Robinson isn't finished with Starmer. In fact, his initial response was just the beginning. Since that first statement, Robinson has been methodically building a case against the British government's approach to political dissent. He's pointing out that while Starmer condemns Kirk's assassination, his own government has imprisoned British citizens for far less controversial speech than anything Kirk ever said. He's highlighting the hypocrisy of a system that claims to oppose political violence while systematically silencing political opposition through legal intimidation. Robinson's broader argument is that Starmer's statement isn't genuine sympathy, it's political calculation. By condemning Kirk's assassination, Starmer gets to appear statesmanlike, while continuing the very policies that Robinson argues create political violence in the first place. "They want to have it both ways," Robinson said in a follow-up video. "They want to silence us through the legal system and then act shocked when some people turn to illegal methods. They create the pressure cooker and then blame us when it explodes." This accusation has resonated far beyond Robinson's usual supporters. Even mainstream conservative commentators are starting to ask whether Western governments have gone too far in restricting political speech. The international reaction to Kirk's assassination reveals something profound about the current state of Western politics. Conservative movements across multiple countries are starting to see themselves as part of a global struggle against establishment suppression. Kirk wasn't just an American figure. He had become a symbol for young conservatives worldwide who felt silenced and marginalised by their own governments and institutions. His assassination has been treated as an attack on the entire international conservative movement. That's why Robinson's response to Starmer matters so much. It's not just about British politics, it's about whether Western Conservatives will continue to accept incremental restrictions on their political rights, or whether they'll start pushing back more aggressively. The question facing Conservative movements now is whether Kirk's death will intimidate them into silence, or whether it will galvanise them into more determined resistance. Early signs suggest it's the latter. Conservative organisations across America and Europe are reporting massive spikes in donations and volunteer applications since Kirk's assassination. Young people who had never been politically active are suddenly getting involved in conservative causes. The immediate question everyone's asking is whether Turning Point USA can survive without its founder. Kirk wasn't just the face of the organisation. He was its driving force, its strategic mastermind, and its primary fundraiser. But Dr. O'Reilly believes the movement is bigger than any one person. What Charlie built has taken on a life of its own. He created an infrastructure, a culture, and most importantly, a generation of young activists who understand what's at stake. The real test will be whether TPUSA can maintain Kirk's approach of combining bold conservative messaging with disciplined, peaceful activism. Kirk's genius was that he could be provocative without being destructive, controversial without being dangerous. If his successors can maintain that balance, Kirk's assassination might backfire on whoever ordered it. Instead of silencing the conservative youth movement, it might have created a martyr who inspires even greater dedication to the cause. But Robinson's confrontation with Starmer points to an even more dangerous possibility. If Western governments continue down the path of criminalising conservative speech, they might be creating the conditions for much more serious political violence. Kirk represented the constitutional path. He showed young conservatives that they could fight back against progressive dominance through legal democratic means. When you eliminate those legal options, you don't eliminate the desire to fight back. You just change the methods people choose. Robinson has been sounding this warning for years, and his own treatment by the British government proves his point. Despite never advocating for violence, despite focusing on legal journalism and peaceful protests, Robinson has been imprisoned, bankrupted, and systematically persecuted by the British state. If that's how governments treat peaceful dissidents, what message does that send to people who might be considering less peaceful alternatives? Kirk's assassination and Robinson's response to Starmer represent a turning point in Western politics. The question is whether we learn the right lessons from this tragedy. The mainstream media will try to use Kirk's death to justify even more restrictions on conservative speech. They'll argue that political rhetoric needs to be toned down, that controversial opinions need to be suppressed, that the solution to political violence is less political freedom. But Robinson's analysis suggests the opposite. Maybe the solution to political violence is more political freedom, not less. Maybe when you give people legal ways to express their frustrations and fight for their beliefs, they're less likely to turn to illegal methods. Charlie Kirk spent his life proving that conservative activism could be both bold and peaceful, both effective and constitutional. His assassination should be a wake-up call that we need more leaders like him, not fewer. This story is still developing, and the implications will be felt for years to come. What's your take on Robinson's accusations against Starmer? Do you think Western governments are creating the conditions for political violence by restricting free speech? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you want to stay ahead of breaking news stories like this that the mainstream media either ignores or completely misrepresents, make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on, because stories like this are exactly why independent media matters more than ever. The establishment doesn't want you connecting these dots, but we're going to keep connecting them anyway.